I'm about as real as they come.
All my beats tailored by Joe. House Digital.
Maserati Rick in Detroit, convertible bird in Miami. Graduated summa cum laude, strip club made a tsunami. Carlton Hines with the ball game, Grateful Edmonds with the snowflakes, Craig Pettis in the M-Town, Sal Magluta with the boat game, Falcone with the cocaine, like Freeway Ricky with the plug game, like Monster Cody in South Central, Larry Davis from close range.
Meanwhile, in Louisiana, just 200 yards from the Mississippi River, in the jail cell that has been his home for nearly 3 years, Corey Miller sits waiting on a retrial for the murder of a 16-year-old boy in a nightclub shooting.
This is Jefferson Parish Correctional Center. You know, they got me for a second-degree murder, something I didn't do.
To many, Corey is not behind bars because he's a killer, but because he is the well-known rapper C Murder, infamous for his stark rhymes of violence and killing.
But you better put it and your paw. My temper hot like Tom on the block, posted up with them things loaded up. And if them people pull up and tell my boy to free, buckle up, knuckle up, screaming CP3.
This man was demonized from literally the day he was arrested. The chief law enforcement officer of Jefferson Parish makes a statement to the police that this is a man who's living his name, C Murder. He's living his lyrics.
But prosecutors say the stage name fits like a bloody glove. He's a killer. The verdict in the new trial will hinge on the jury's perception of who sits before them, Corey Miller, artist, or C Murder, homicidal thug.
To have my name used against me since I've been arrested, you know, it hurt, you heard me, because it's like, I'm guilty for I'm innocent.
New Orleans and Miami are just two battlegrounds in what has become a war of values.
Race does play a factor in a lot of these cases. You have prejudice in every department because people see these guys making a lot of money, driving a Mercedes-Benz that they could work 20 years and never get.
To some, the conflict is as much a class struggle as a racial one.
Hip-hop spits truth to power, and very often those in law enforcement represent a protective force for those who are in power.
Police would be focusing on hip-hop like never before. One of the first to react in 2001, 7 years after Tupac Shakur's conviction on sexual assault charges, another thug rapper found himself in trouble with the law. After nearly 3 years in Jefferson Parish Correctional Center, Corey Miller remains behind bars on charges of second-degree murder in the killing of a 16-year-old boy.
This is happening to me because first of all, I'm C Murder.
And in New Orleans, that means many things to different people. The brother of rap superstar and mogul Master P, Miller carved his own niche in hip-hop. Corey Miller forged his gangster image in the grim Calliope housing projects in Central City, New Orleans.
Basically, just coming from the project, the police gonna profile you as a criminal, as a crook, as somebody that's about to do wrong.
On the night of January 12, 2002, Miller went to a rap contest at the Platinum Club in this empty bowling alley across the river from New Orleans.
Night of this incident at the Platinum Club, I went to have some fun. I went to the club. There was an incident. There was a shooting.
Steve Thomas, a 16-year-old who had sneaked into the club, was struck and killed.
I had no part of it. Once the shooting happened, I left along with 100 other people, you know, and left, went about my business.
6 days later, Miller was arrested for the murder, although police possessed no physical evidence connecting him to the crime.
The evidence that they had to lock me up was none. There's no evidence, no forensics, no ballistics, no gun, no nothing.
No calls to the police reporting the murder were made at the time, and different witnesses recall vastly different characteristics when describing the shooter. Nor the suspects were pursued by police. Jefferson Parish police refused comment on the case.
A name was given to the police as the person who had committed this murder. And I can tell you that from my review of what was purported to be the entire police files, there's not any indication that any steps whatsoever were taken to follow that lead as to the identity, as to whether or not this person was the real perpetrator.
On the indictment, Miller was also charged by his stage name, C. Murder.
By the time I went to trial, they came up with 3 witnesses.
There was not a single witness who came to this trial and testified before this jury that said they ever even saw a gun in his hand.
To Miller and his attorney, what the state had really put on trial was the stage image of C. Murder.
For me to be in a situation, because my name is C. Murder and I'm on a murder charge, you can't put both of them together and just off top assume that I'm guilty.
The prosecutor pointed to C. Murder and said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is his name, C. Murder." Now, if a person got a name, C. Murder, you know that they must be guilty of murder. That's wrong.
At one point during a bond hearing, C. Murder's blunt lyrics were read in the courtroom.
What does his lyrics have to do with whether or not he should be given bond? So does his profession, does his line of work, does hip-hop play some role in these things? Apparently it did to these folks.
It was not the first time that a rapper's lyrics were used as evidence against him.
Not only is it outrageous and prejudicial to have somebody in a trial to have lyrics read from a song and use that in some ways as evidence of your guilt, but it also turns on its head the whole idea of the presumption of innocence in our criminal system.
I think that's ridiculous. I think that's like me, that's like Robert De Niro getting a ticket and me, reading a line from Goodfellas. It makes no sense.
But people, they ask questions like, well, do you feel like rappers have a responsibility, with their lyrics? No. Their only responsibility is to make it as hot as you think it could be.
But to police, the literal nature of rap tracks makes them potential evidence of a criminal state of mind.
If you are saying in your rap lyric that you are going to kill or are responsible for some form of violence that took place, and that violence did in fact unfold in the manner in which you're talking about, then I think the police have the very right to use those lyrics.
The combined effect of the C. Murder image and the testimony of the 3 witnesses against him was enough to sway the jury. Miller was convicted of second-degree murder.
In C. Murder's case, you see an example of grossly unfair use of the First Amendment as evidence to convict someone.
My conviction was really, they took my soul. They took my life to put the community at ease.
The mandatory sentence for the conviction was life in prison. While the verdict was the subject of angry debate in New Orleans, throughout hip-hop, a larger question was being asked. Was rap itself being targeted for a takedown? A smoking gun would soon appear. Then, troubling discoveries about the handling of the C. Murder trial added credence to the idea that rappers were being targeted for prosecution. Hidden from the defense team was the fact that each of the 3 key witnesses against Miller had themselves been facing charges. Offers have been made reducing or dismissing their charges in return for their testimony. Miller's defense team immediately appealed for the verdict to be set aside. Equally disturbing, a major piece of conflicting testimony had been reported to prosecutors, but never made it to trial.
And one of the witnesses came forward and said, well, it wasn't him. I saw a guy who it was. It wasn't Corey Miller.
When she was questioned by the police, she told them that although she had never seen Corey Miller with a gun, she had seen someone else. And in fact, she said that she was shown photographs by the police and that she identified a person in those photographs as the person she had seen with a gun. She said the police told her they weren't interested in that person. They were only interested in Corey Miller.
Based on the new information, the trial judge overturned the verdict and granted a new trial.
Ultimately, the jury's verdict was set aside by the court because the court found that the police and the prosecutors had massively violated Corey Miller's right to a fair trial.
Corey waits on his next day in court. Prosecutors say the outcome will remain the same. But he wonders if it will be his turn in court or if once again it will be C. Murder and all of hip-hop on trial.
They're trying to stop us all together. I mean, is it a bigger picture? Is it this is the first step to something you're trying to do to us in the future? Maybe end it? You know, you got to start thinking like that because, look, it's real out here. You know, it's real.
It's really in the condition of the people.
Rapper known as C. Murder was sentenced today after a jury in Jefferson Parish convicted him on second-degree murder charges. This was the second trial for Corey Miller, who was convicted in the first trial, but that conviction was overturned. Now in this second trial, he was found guilty a second time for the killing of 16-year-old Steve Thomas at a now-closed club across the river. This conviction carries with it an automatic life sentence, and our Katie Moore is outside the courthouse now. And were there any surprises at today's sentencing, Katie?
No real surprises, Eric, but it was an emotional day for all of the families involved in this case. This morning, both the parents of Steve Thomas took the witness stand and made emotional victim impact statements to the court and to Corey Miller in court. Now, again, Corey Miller was facing second-degree murder charges in the shooting of Steve Thomas in a Harvey nightclub in 2002. Miller's family filled up a row of the courtroom as he sat in the custody of sheriff's deputies in an orange prison jumpsuit and his gold-rimmed glasses. Miller's family quietly left the courtroom just after 11:30 this morning, a somber day for them, and we're just moments ago saw Steve Thomas's family come out of the courtroom. In court, however, Thomas's mother Dolores cried as she made a victim impact statement to the court. She told them, quote, "It has been 7 long years for us with no closure." She continued, "For us as parents, the grieving process has never ended. We still cry every day." And at one point, Thomas's father addressed Miller's family in court. Here's how Corey Miller's sister reacted to that.
I felt what he said because we lost one 18 years ago. I'm sorry, but my brother's still innocent. So they'll tell you somebody's still out there is the murderer. You know, I feel sorry for their family, and I pray for them because 18 years ago my brother died, and we know who killed him.
Now, Miller's attorney, Ron Rakowski, filed, of course, a motion for a new trial today. He also filed a motion to appeal the conviction in this case. Originally, during testimony and during the case and during those deliberations of the jury, he had filed a motion for a new trial. He amended that motion today, saying things like this non-unanimous verdict violated Corey Miller's constitutional rights, something that has already vetted its way through the Supreme Court. So whether or not that will go anywhere, whether or not that will gain any traction, will have to be seen in the next few weeks and months. Reporting live from Jefferson Parish, Katie Moore, Channel 4.
Yeah, we back with it. It's your boy Popular Mobb Ties on our way to the NO. Calio Projects to be exact. But we gonna cover none other than the legend C. Murder from the No Limit camp. Brother Master P, brother Silk the Shocker, we all know that. Now C. Murder is locked up for life for the killing of, I want to say, a teenager at a nightclub or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And he was also arrested for the shooting are convicted for the shooting at another club of a bouncer and trying to shoot the club owner for wanting to pat him down. Now, shit, what I know about C Murder before I did any research was this nigga was on some wild shit. Anybody, put it like this, anybody that made it out of the New Orleans projects, any one of them, three of them shits, the Melf, the Magnolia, or the Calliope, and they doing good for themselves, man. Shout out to them, first of all. Second of all, they went through some shit, because just on my research on New Orleans, that shit is just next level as far as with the violence, as far as with the guns. I want to say my first introduction to that shit, honestly, was a documentary that C Murder did called Straight Out the Streets, where he was going around to all the projects in New Orleans. I'm going to leave a link at the bottom of this video, but he pretty much was touring through the projects of the city. And during the filming of that DVD, I want to say 7 people were shot and killed just on the production of that DVD alone. But that's not even the most intriguing shit about it to me. It was one scene in the DVD documentary where they had the life insurance man over, and he was putting life insurance on a 14-year-old kid. It's your boy Popular, Mobb Ties.
2 weeks after he was sentenced to life in prison for killing a teenager in Harvey, rapper Corey C. Murder Miller was ordered Tuesday to prison for 10 years for trying to kill 2 people at a Baton Rouge nightclub in 2001. But based on the terms of Miller's plea deal in that case, he will have completed that sentence soon, because the time he spent in jail and under house arrest will be deducted from the 10-year sentence, attorneys said. He probably served the vast majority of his time already, Assistant Attorney General David Caldwell, who prosecuted the case with Butch Wilson, said after the sentencing hearing. "I don't like it," Caldwell added, "but Miller by law is entitled to get credit for the time he was incarcerated before his case was resolved." Miller pleaded no contest May 27 to 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder. In an incident captured on surveillance video, Miller, wearing a New Orleans Saints jersey, tried to shoot a nightclub owner and a bouncer on August 14, 2001, inside club rags. The dispute stemmed from Miller's unwillingness to be searched by the bouncer before being allowed entry, authorities said. Miller's semi-automatic pistol jammed, authorities said. "I'm glad it's over," Miller's attorney Steve Moore said. "I think Corey's glad it's over." Despite the incriminating video, the prosecutors have said they faced an uphill battle in the attempted murders case. An investigator lost the bullet Miller ejected from his pistol after it jammed, they said. Because the case was old, prosecutors feared jurors could have acquitted Miller based on the time that has passed since the incident. And club owner Norman Sparrow alleges in a civil lawsuit against Miller and others that the shooting attempt was a publicity stunt, which in jurors' eyes could affect his credibility as a victim of an attempted murder. Caldwell has said. Miller, 38, was free on bond in that case when he shot Steve Thomas during a brawl in a Harvey nightclub on January 12, 2002. A Jefferson Parish jury, in a 10-2 verdict, convicted him of second-degree murder for killing Thomas, 16, of Avondale. The jury that convicted Miller in Thomas' death did not hear evidence of the Baton Rouge incident. However, Jefferson Parish prosecutors used that crime to convince a grand jury to indict Miller with second-degree murder in February 2002. Miller received a mandatory life sentence August 14, making the Baton Rouge sentence moot unless the Jefferson case is overturned on appeal, attorneys said. In keeping with what he called was a negotiated agreement reached between Miller's attorney and prosecutors in May. Judge Tony Marabella of the 19th Judicial District ordered that the rapper be given credit for the time he was jailed in Baton Rouge and under house arrest in Kenner. He spent more than 4 years in jail and about 3 years under house arrest. The State Department of Corrections calculates the actual prison time, so attorneys said Tuesday they did not know when the rapper will have completed the sentence. Corrections officials had not received Marabella's order Tuesday afternoon to begin the complex process of calculating Miller's sentence. Spokeswoman Pam Laborde said, "If a judge is very specific in giving someone credit for time in house arrest, then we would follow that," she said. Moore said his client's more than 3 years in home incarceration will be subtracted from the prison sentence because Marabella ordered it specifically. Should the Department of Corrections refuse to accept house arrest time in calculating the prison sentence, Caldwell said the attorneys would be back in court. Legal precedent supports crediting house arrest, Caldwell said, referring to a decision from the state Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal in Gretna in the case of former Tulane University running back Tony Converse, who was convicted of narcotics violations in 2001 in Jefferson Parish. But the state Supreme Court has not visited the question, Caldwell said. Sporting a freshly shaved head, Miller appeared before Marabella on Tuesday shortly after 10 a.m. "Is there anything you'd like to say before I pronounce the sentence?" Marabella asked Miller, who was dressed in orange prison clothing and was restrained with handcuffs and ankle shackles. "No, Your Honor," Miller replied.